Canada finally bans Chinese tech giant Huawei from 5G network. This is the Great White North Report. I'm in love with the system. Never going home. I'm in love. Okay, I first learned about this early Friday morning and couldn't do anything about it till Saturday night. But this is finally something we should have did 3 years ago. But the Liberal government was too scared to do anything, especially when Kovrig and Spavor were arrested. They were afraid to take this step in retaliation, which they should have. And the Liberal government's always worried about the implications for national security and diplomacy. It's kind of strange that they made this decision on Thursday at the same time that China lifted a 3-year ban on Canadian canola. Now, for those who don't know, Canadian canola was being shipped to China in trade, and there were restrictions in place after we arrested Huawei CFO Meng the Merciless Wanzhou in Vancouver. And the Chinese authorities alleged there was detection of pests and other things. It was just a diplomatic move to put pressure on Canada because Canadian canola farmers were hurting. But China reinstated market access for 2 Canadian grain trading companies that have been prevented from exporting canola seed to China since March 2019. China right now needs to import food more than ever. Now that before the ban, Chinese market made up 40% of Canada's canola exports. It fell to $800 million in 2019, $1.4 billion in 2020, and $1.8 billion in 2021. So it was steadily rising despite what China was doing. It was going back to what it was because China needs food more than they let people know. So we'll see if China doesn't try and ban that again. So the ban on Huawei from working on Canada's 5th generation networks over security concerns, and critics say was long overdue. And it was. They've had so much time to go over the data and look at what others have been doing. Australia, the United States, the United Kingdom, New Zealand had already banned it, and Canada was lagging behind because Trudeau is a China lover. He likes the Chinese Communist Party. It's his father's legacy, opening up China to Canadian trade. So we're also banning ZTE, another Chinese-backed telecommunications firm. They'll have until June 28, 2024 to remove or terminate 5G equipment from Huawei and ZTE. Companies will. They'll also have to remove or terminate any existing 4G equipment provided by the companies by December 31st, 2027. So that's a long way away. That's 5 years from now. So basically, it's going to stop companies from purchasing 4G or 5G equipment from the companies by September of this year and going elsewhere. Well, already our 5G network we're going to buy from, was it Nokia? We're going to buy from? So it was just a matter of time before we banned it ourselves. Trudeau was worried that banning it would harm relations with China even more, which had already been destroyed anyway. The idea is to safeguard our telecommunications industry. Well, they're a little too late for that, but they say new legislation is coming to protect 5G networks. We'll establish a framework to better protect the systems vital to our national security and give the government a new tool to respond to emerging cyber threats. Yeah, well, they could have did this 3 years ago, buddy. So all the opposition parties are blasting the government, saying the decision was too late. The Conservative Party repeatedly called on the Trudeau government to do the right thing and listen to security experts and calls from our allies, but they refused. Again, Trudeau dragged his feet on this. He didn't want to do it. He didn't want to upset his buddies with the Chinese Communist Party. And it's going to cost companies more now to remove existing equipment because they've had 3 years to buy and implement because they weren't sure of government policy. Though these companies were kind of dumb, they should have realized going another way. But Canadian telecommunications companies purchased hundreds of millions of dollars of Huawei equipment, which will now have to be removed from their networks at enormous expense. Why they buy in the first place is beyond me. And I agree with Michael Chong, the foreign affairs critic for the Conservatives. It shouldn't have taken more than 3 years to ban Huawei. It should have been done as soon as Kovrig and Spavor were arrested. Do it right away. But this is another case of the Trudeau government not protecting Canadians. And this means every Canadian, not just one fringe group. Even the NDP criticized the government's timing. And they're right, saying that it raises serious questions at home and among our allies about the Liberal government's national security commitments and hampered the domestic telecommunications market. Meanwhile, there's nuts in the NDP that want to disband the army. Okay, but what can you do? So Huawei is officially dead in Canada, or will be, unless they reinstate them at some point in time. Hopefully we don't do that. That would be stupid. Because you got to remember, Huawei, even though it's listed as a private company, China's national intelligence law says Chinese organizations and citizens must support and assist and cooperate with state intelligence work. So even though Huawei insists it's fiercely independent and does not engage in espionage for anyone, including Beijing, that is a lie, because the head of Huawei is a member of the Communist Party of China. You cannot do business on that scale unless you're a member of the party. Any business with more than 5 employees has to have a Communist Party member on its board working there. So something Huawei would be riddled with Communist Party officials. The founder, he worked for the military. He was part of the military. And so they use this, and this is how they keep control of their citizens overseas, or Chinese expats overseas, especially if they have family back home on the mainland. So this is a good step, I think, for Canada, and it's about time. Now, if we can only find out what happened to those 2 Chinese scientists that got escorted from a Winnipeg lab, it'd be great. But let's see what Trudeau had to say. He says that the Huawei ZTE 5G ban took longer because the government wanted to get it right. It took its time. Like, that's the problem. The Liberal government is so slow to do anything that affects every Canadian, but at the same time, they're so happy to pass stuff that helps the fringe groups in this country. So Trudeau says the decision will serve to ensure the safety of Canadians online. Right. And we are finally online with key intelligence allies like the United States. And we're the last member of the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance to impose the ban. Well, that's Trudeau. This is a guy who led the People's Liberation Army to train in Canada. We'll see what the Chinese response is to this, because they will react to this slap in the face, because Huawei is one of the flagship companies of the Chinese Communist Party. So we'll see. Anyway, any Canadians out there, let me know, was this the right move? Yes or no? Simple question. Leave comments in the comment section. And until next time, this has been the Great White North Report. I'm in love.